I guess what I remember from that day most of all is not knowing the enormity of it as we were headed to the scene. You know, I remember getting the call at home and meeting Bill Demestri to head out there, but not knowing as we were headed there what we were going to find. And obviously we got there after the accident had occurred, but just my recollection now is that I don't remember at the time really grasping how huge a tragedy it was. That it was bigger than anything either of us had covered. And Bill was a longtime news veteran, and I was just out of school and just starting my career. So that's what I remember from just getting to the scene. I think what stuck with me is realizing later how immense the tragedy was, that there were so many children involved at the time, that it was all basically members of the same family with a loving grandfather, and trying to get our arms around that as a newspaper and report that. You're so busy at the time you don't, it's kind of odd, you don't have time to think about that kind of thing. And it really didn't hit me until a year later when I had to do an anniversary story about it. And that's when it really sunk into me, because like a lot of different stories we cover, you're so busy at the time, it doesn't sink in until later. And that's, I think, what I remember all these years later. You know, I remember doing stories in the aftermath of it about railroad safety in the state of Illinois, and what crossings were protected and why, and how they you know, made very specific decisions on crossing gates and lights depending on not only road traffic in the area, but how much train traffic there was. And this was just that horrible second when something happened that was totally tragic. I don't know if I'm saying that very well, but it was just a moment in time that could have been so easily changed, you know, or avoided. Since then, that we have covered as a newspaper that has touched specifically on that many deaths from one specific, you know, news event. And that's kind of amazing to think, because it's been 40 years since that. And the News-Democrat has covered many, many stories in the succeeding decades. And still, to this day, I don't think we've encountered anything that was quite that enormous, for want of a better word.